Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are going to do another poem called Meeting at Night by one of my very favorite poets, Robert Browning. So let's start with the poem Meeting at Night by Robert Browning. Before we start, just an introduction to the context of the poem. Meeting at Night is a short poem Browning published in 1845 in the book called Dramatic Romances and Lyrics. With the publication of this book, Browning consolidated his reputation as one of the most popular English poets of the time. And this is also a year for me established a relationship with a very well-known poet, Elizabeth Barrett Browning. She was Elizabeth Barrett then. So Elizabeth Barrett, a very well-known poet who lived a very sheltered and secluded life in London. Their love for one another is clear and obvious from many letters they exchange, and it is also reflected in their poetry. And you're shortly going to read an example of that. Meeting at Night is a deceptively simple poem written at the time when Browning was in love with Elizabeth Barrett and corresponding for months with her, uh, for months on end with her. So the poem Meeting at Night, that's the poem. It's a very short poem with just two stanzas. It's an unusual take on a secret meeting between lovers. The readers have to put between lovers, and this is what we presume that it is two lovers. It's basically a secret meeting between two people. The language is sparse, it's musical, rhythm is varied, there is rhyme pattern. It kind of all it the overall effect of the poem is to anticipate the rendezvous, the meeting between the two people. It is an ambiguous poem because, as I said, we assume that it is two lovers. It might just be two other people, but the way it is described uh, kind of leads the readers to think that it is two lovers. It is full of seascape and landscape within which a person travels, one of the two people in the relationship. So one person travels, crossing the waters before landing. Sorry, before so crosses the waters before landing on the shore here, the slushy sand that is the shore, the beach. Right then he walks across beach, sea-scented beach and three fields. So he kind of, really has to travel. He has to really make a journey to meet the beloved. The two stanzas kind of take the reader. It's almost like cinematic. You can feel, you can see, you can. It is full of sensory images, sounds, uh, sights. So it's like a cinematic experience for the readers. It is a commentary ranging from the overview of land and sea, shifting focus from the detailed description of the landscape, the waves, the beach, and then in the last few lines, the intimate meeting between the two lovers. Let's look at the form first, right? Let's look at the form of the poem. As I mentioned in the earlier discussion on of Shakespeare Sonnet 18, form in a poem there is form and there is content, and the two are tied together, right? So don't think that form is separate and content is separate. Form in a way reflects the content of the poem. It evokes the feelings that the content of the poem is talking about. So let's look here. It's, as I said, a very short poem. It's a very short poem with just two stanzas. Here, just two stanzas, 1 and 2. Now each stanza is of 6 lines. Here, 6 lines in the first stanza and 6 lines in the second stanza. And if you remember again Shakespeare's Sonnet 18, the structure of this poem is very close to a sonnet. It's very close to a sonnet. Do you remember the sonnet? 8 lines and 6 lines, or 3 quatrains and 2 couplets. That makes it 14 lines. Here we have Instead of 8 lines here, instead of 2 quartets here, we have 6 lines and then another 6 lines. 12 lines in total. So it's quite close to a sonnet. Can you see the rhyme scheme here? Let's look here. Let's look at the rhyme scheme now. Let me highlight it here. There is the grey sea and the long black land, and the yellow half moon, large and low, and the startled little waves that leap in fairy ringlets from their sleep, as I gain the cove from pushing prow and quench its speed in the slushy sand. And you see land here. We are working on the rhyme pattern or the rhyme scheme, and it comes only here. Right? So if we call this sound A, then A is repeated only in the last line of the paragraph. What's the next sound at the end? Low. And the yellow half moon, large and low. Is that sound repeated? Here. Pushing prow. Pushing prow. So if we call this B, then we have B here. And the startled little waves that leap in the fairy ringlets from their sleep. So leap and sleep. Alright, so the rhyme pattern here is A and A, B and B, C, C. So A, B, C, C, B, A. For this paragraph, we worked it out A, B, C, C, B, A. Now let's check it out here in the next paragraph. We have the sound beach here. Beach. Is it AA? Then the sound should be repeated in the last line. We have each. Appears, fears, scratch, and match. So it seems to be that this is a rhyme pattern in the poem A, B, C, C, B, A. That is a rather unusual rhyme pattern. Very unusual to have a rhyme pattern like that, but he does maintain it in the whole, in the entire poem. Now let's work out. So remember, we worked out in the sonnet, Shakespeare's sonnet, we worked out we started macro, we started with a bigger picture, we started with 14 lines, and then we saw that how 14 lines are arranged in quatrains, and then we came to the rhyme, and then we came down to the level of the line, and we are doing the same thing, right? So 12 lines here, so 12 lines divided into 2 paragraphs or 6 lines each, with a rhyme pattern A, B, C, C, B, A. Right? So there is a certain rhyme pattern is interesting to note because it lends a certain musical quality to the poem. Now, is there certain musical quality also within the lines? Is there a particular meter? Remember the meter, the arrangement of stressed and unstressed syllables. Now here I cannot do it as I did it for you on the paper in Shakespeare's sonnet, but here I have underlined the stressed syllables. I have underlined the stressed syllables here. So look at the first line, the grey, the grey. So here is the unstressed and this one is stressed. The grey. Do you remember? What is it? Unstressed and stressed. How does it sound like? Right? Unstressed, stressed. Unstressed, stressed. Do you remember what was it called? It is the same meter that Shakespeare used. It's iambic meter. Unstressed and stressed, followed by a stress. Unstressed followed by a stressed. So iambic meter. Look at the first line then. The grey, sea and. The grey, sea and. The long black land. So it's iambic meter, but here it is 1 meter, 2. Remember that it is the pattern 2 meters together making a single metrical feet. So the grey sea and the long black land, how many meters are there? 4 in this line. Unlike Shakespeare, who uses pentameter, that is 5 meters in a line, Browning is using 4 meters in a line, and that is a tetrameter. So it is iambic tetrameter. The poem is written in iambic tetrameter. Each line contains 4 iambs. The grey iambs, remember, unstressed, stressed. You must remember that it is the most common poetic meter, unstressed and stressed. So iamb, uh, and then 4 meters in a line, so tetrameter, iambic tetrameter. But Browning is not so methodical. Browning is not so, Browning likes to experiment. He's a little more innovative uh, in his writing, in his poetry. And if you notice it if you read carefully, apart from the first line, none of the later lines, apart from the first few lines, none of the later lines are purely in iambic tetrameter. Look at this. Look at this here. And the yellow. And the yell. How many syllables in there? And the yell. It's the sound. How does it sound? 2 unstressed and 1 stressed. He uses that a lot in this. So there is the dominant meter. Again, in the next meter, he comes back to unstressed and stressed. Yellow half, moon large and low. So moon large and low. He comes back, but he starts this with a different metrical. He breaks the metrical pattern. He innovates. He plays around with the metrical pattern. So here there are 3 syllables in a meter with 2 unstressed and 1 stressed, and this is called anapest. So what is I am? Unstressed and stressed. What is anapest? 2 unstressed followed by a stressed meter. It's here, and the start and the start and the are unstressed there. If you like, the start is stressed. So 2 unstressed followed by a stressed, that is anapest. So and the yellow half moon large and low, and the startled lit and the startled little waves that leap, and startled little waves that leap. Right. So here again he uses anapest and comes back to iambic meter. Look at this line. Look at the last 6th line here. And quench. And quench. What is the pattern here? And quench. Iambic. 2 syllables. And is unstressed. Quench. So and quench. Its speed. Again an iamb. So and quench. Its speed. In the slush. In the slush. Right. So again 3 syllables here. In the slush. But here again it is an anapest. In the slush is sand. And quench its speed in the slush is sand. Right. So he varies iambic tetrameter with anapest. And the repetition of and here, it kind of lends a certain lyrical musicality, breaks the rhythm and comes back to it. So it is he kind of varies to bring a greater amount of rhythm to the poem. So remember here, from here we take it is, remember what is iambic and remember what is anapest. This is anapest, and the start unstressed, unstressed, stressed. So that is the form. Now let's sum up the form. It has 12 lines divided into 6 paragraphs. two paragraphs of 6 lines each with a clear, although an unusual rhyme pattern A, B, C, C, B, A. So sonnet, but not really a sonnet. Almost there, on near a sonnet, but not really a sonnet. Unusual rhyme pattern, written in iambic tetrameter, but that iambic tetrameter is broken by anapest, right? It's broken by anapest. So he has a structure, but he often experiments with the structure. Browning often experiments with the structure. Sonnet, not really a sonnet, but almost there. An unusual rhyme pattern, and then a broken metrical pattern or an experimental metrical pattern with iambic tetrameter, varying with anapest. All right, so let's go on to the content of the poem. Let's read what he's saying. Now, the grey sea and the long black land, and the yellow half moon large and low, and the startled little waves that leap in the fiery ringlets from their sleep, as I gain the cove with a pushing prow, and quench its speed in the slushy sand. What is happening in the poem? A grey sea and a long black land. We begin with a visual imagery. We begin with what we are seeing, right? What the speaker is seeing, and he's telling us what he's seeing, what's out there in front of his eyes. The grey sea and the long black land, the yellow half moon, large and low. The contrast, can you see there is contrasting the colors, grey, black, and yellow of the moon, sea and land, and then the moon. So you have, there are no verbs. We just see the images, right? Nobody is doing anything. We just see the images, right? So it's night time. We know there is yellow half moon, large and low. Can you see here, large and low? This one. What figure of speech is that? Do you remember? Large and low. The repetition of L sound at the start, at the initial repetition of the consonant sound at the repetition of the first consonant in a word. Alliteration, large and low. We again have it here, alliteration with the sound P, pushing prow, pushing prow. So here we have another instance, little waves that leap. Right, so there is some alliteration there, very visual, and a startled little waves that leap. So this is all that he's seeing. He's seeing the grey sea, the long black land, the moon, the startled little waves that leap in fiery ringlets from their sleep. So till now it has been the night time and we are seeing grey, black, yellow half moon. But now what is the color of the waves? It's fiery. It's fiery. They're reflecting probably the light of the moon. So the waves on the grey sea are fiery. They're lit, uh, so to say. So finally he moves on. We finally come to an I here, right? We finally come to an I, person. A person in this landscape. What is that person doing? As I gain the cove with a pushing prow, pushing prow. So he's obviously rowing, right? He's rowing his boat, and he gains a cove, and on the beach he finds a recess, and he pushes the prow into that recess. From the sea he has rowed into this beach with a pushing prow, and quench its speed in the slushy sand. And quench, do you know the meaning of the word quench? To stop, to extinguish, quench your thirst, we say. Quench, to slake, to stop your thirst, to extinguish your thirst, you drink water. To quench its speed, whose speed? The boat. So the boat's speed slowly comes to, the boat slowly comes to rest, the speed slowly comes, gradually decreases. So quench its speed. How does he quench the speed of the boat? In the slushy sand. In the slushy sand. So the boat that has been rowing on the grey sea, that has been rowing through the little waves of fiery ringlets, now gains the beach, finds the narrator, the speaker, finds a small recess, small cove on the beach, and he rows the boat in there, and the boat, as it encounters sand, its speed is slowed down. So that's what happens in this entire paragraph. Notice also the use quench in the slushy sand. It's onomatopic. Remember the sounds that resemble what's happening. Slush. It's almost, to me, it gives this feeling of slushiness. Um, yeah, I think it is onomatopic. The word slush. That's the next paragraph. So, in the first paragraph, he rowed the boat and came to the beach. He gained a recess, a cove, he put the boat there, and then he goes on foot. Then a mile of warm sea scented beach. Then a mile, again here, then a mile, Anapest. Then a mile of warm sea scented beach. 3 fields to cross till a farm appears. So, this is his journey. It seems to be a long journey. He comes to meet this person in the secret in night, rowing the boat quietly, walks a mile on the beach, and then crosses 3 fields till he comes to the farm. So quite a long journey, but we don't feel that it's a tiring journey. He never tells us. I think it's more of an anticipation. He builds with all these visuals. He builds a sense of anticipation. Where is he going? What's going to happen? So then a mile of warm sea-scented beach, 3 fields to cross till a farm appears. A tap at the pane, a quick sharp scratch, a tap at the pane. So now we come to the sounds. A tap at the pane, window pane. A quick sharp scratch and blue spurt of a lighted match. So probably the scratch comes when you light a match, when you light a matchstick. And then so the sound, a tap at the pane, so it's not a meeting. He does not go and ring the bell or knock at the door. It's a small tap on the window pane. And then equally the person inside the house is equally quiet. A quick sharp scratch, a blue spurt of a lighted match, a voice less loud through its joys and fears, a voice less loud though through its joys and fears than the two hearts beating each to each. So there is sound here, a tap of pain, a quick sharp scratch. There is a lighted match, then he sees a lighted match through the window pane, and then there is a low voice. The voice is low through its joys and fears, so the voice is low. It's lower than the two hearts that are beating each to each, right? The two hearts beating in their joy and fear, each to each. So at the end of this strenuous journey is somebody inside the farm, somebody inside the house, waiting for him, answers back in a soft voice, but the two hearts beat louder than the voice. So it's like we have visual effects. Later on, we come to auditory, oral effects, and then it ends there. Then two hearts beating each to each. It's a meeting at night. It's the end of the journey, right? It's highly compressed a highly compressed story, a highly compressed account of one meeting, one secret meeting with somebody, and he crossed the sea, he walked through the beach, he crossed fields to come to meet. And that's what leads one to think that a person on the other side is probably a lover. The secrecy, uh, the the pains, the effort that he makes through the journey. All right. So now we come to the next, the companion piece for the poem parting at morning, to the poem meeting at night. How does the meeting at night end? The meeting at night ends with parting at morning. Right? Meeting at night ends with parting at morning. And when these two poems were published in 1845, they were just published night and morning. So usually night, uh, when we think of night, we call it the time of darkness, the time of sleep. It also has certain dark, ominous, sinister undertones. It also is the end of the day, so tiredness, fatigue. So that's night. And morning is when you get up. It's a new day. It's a new uh, it's a new dawn, new hope. So morning symbolizes all that. But here, Browning is reversing that image. Night is about this secret meeting that he has been looking forward to. So the night is about meeting with his beloved, and morning is about parting. Right? Morning is about separation. Now, parting at morning is a really short poem. It's very short. It is just these four lines. Round the cape of a sudden came the sea. Round the cape of a sudden came the sea, and the sun looked over the mountain's rim. And straight was a path of gold for him, and the need of a world of men for me. That's that's parting at morning, or morning as it was first published. And now, uh, just like the earlier poem, Night, Meeting at Night, it begins with a view of the landscape. We again begin with a view of the landscape. Night, it was just the long black land, the grey sea, and the waves. Here, the view is much more, it's like a panorama. It's like this wide view, open air, it's flourishing wide view. It's like sun coming up. Round the came of a sudden came the sea. And the sun looked over the mountains ring. So there's a day, a sun is rising. It's a new day coming. And straight was a path of gold for him. Who is him? That is ambiguous. And straight was a path of gold for him. Is this the person? Is this a person who made this long journey in the night to meet his beloved? Or is it referring to the sun that looked over the mountain's rim and straight was a path of gold for him? We do not really know. And the need of a world of men for me. The sun comes up, there's a straight path of gold for him. If it is up to you, it could mean both. It could mean the sun. The sun, it has a straight path. It has to rise, it has to go through its daily rhythm and then set in the night and rise up again. Similarly, for this young man, for this man who crossed the seas, walked the fields to meet the beloved, there is a straight path of gold. There is a straight path that he also has to follow. There is a straight rhythm that he has to follow. He might have a secret meeting in the night, but he has to return to his world in the morning. The need of the world of men for me. So, need. It's not as if he's forced and uh, he's really sorrowful about this about separation. He needs to return to the world of men, right? What is the world of men? Probably the world of work, his daily uh, chores that he has to do. So it's not just he needs to return to that world. He doesn't feel threatened by the sun. He does not feel upset by the sunrise. Actually, it is uh, he needs to return. He feels a need to return back to his world. All right, so that is a poem. That is a set of poems, "Meeting at Night" and "Parting at Morning," written by Robert Browning. Uh, as you can see, it is on the one hand, it is a dramatic romance. It's about meeting with a beloved, anticipation. He takes this arduous, strenuous journey, and he meets the beloved, and then he feels the need to part at the morning. So, but as you can see, he upsets certain uh, expectations. On the level of form, he comes close to the sonnet, but not really writes a sonnet. At the level of rhyme pattern, a very unusual rhyme pattern of A B C C D A. If you remember, at the level of metrical pattern in each line, iambic tetrameter broken by anapest. But when you come to the content, he reverses, as I said, he reverses, or he kind of gives a new meaning to the what night symbolizes and what morning symbolizes. Right? Night is not a time of darkness, fear, tiredness, or fatigue, but night is a time of anticipation. Night is energetic time when he goes and undertakes this journey to meet his beloved. Morning is a time of parting. But again, it's not sorrowful. Parting, unlike love poetry, parting for Browning is not sorrowful. He does not look back. There are no tears here. He feels the need of a world of men. So he is, even in the terms of content, he's writing love poetry, but he is changing the meaning of the symbols. He's changing the way love poetry is written. So with that, we come to an end of this session on Robert Browning and his poetry. I shall see you again later with the poetry of Thomas Hardy. Goodbye.